Hello, hello! It's Julie DiMatteo from thepaperpixie.com, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. But we're going to be making this really cool ornament, so let me take it out of the shadow box. How awesome is this ornament? I love it. This is inspired by, and I followed a tutorial by Samantha Clayton. Her blog is called mixedupcraft.com, and she's got a really cool version where she's got 4 of these in a shadow box. I'm backwards here. So I decided to come up with a shadow box that fits just one. I love it. So we're gonna make this whole thing tonight. I'm gonna start with the ornament, and this is just, an extra special way to package up this ornament. Great for the holidays. I'm gonna go ahead and flip the camera, and we're just gonna go ahead and get started. Okay, here we go. So we're gonna go ahead and get started and start with a piece of real red cardstock that measures 6 inches by 10 1/4 inches, and we are going to score this along the 6-inch side at 1 inch and 5 inches. And then we're going to rotate it, and we're going to score this at 2 1/2, 5, 7 1/2, and 10. And then we're going to score only down to this 1 inch horizontal score line at 3/4 and 1 3/4, 3 1/4, 4 1/4, 5 3/4, 6 3/4, 8 1/4, and 9 1/4. Okay. Now those are a lot of little teeny score lines, but so we only have to know one set of measurements. I'm actually going to just completely flip my cardstock, and it's okay that we're scoring on the back, and we're going to follow those same measurements. So again, 3/4, 1 3/4, 3 1/4, 4 1/4, 5 3/4, 6 3/4, 8 1/4, and 9 1/4. Okay, so that's it for the scoreboard. I'm going to go ahead and put that away for now. I'm going to pull in a piece of grid sheet, and I've got a big foam pad under here. Our Stampin' Pierce mat would work just great as well. And I am going to kind of line this up. I'm using the measurements. Let me see if I can get the whole thing in the screen. All right, I'm using the measurements. I'm just going to make sure that I line up this left edge. Doesn't really matter what inch, but I just want to make sure. I'm going to bring in a metal ruler. 2 inches from the edge, I'm going to go ahead and line up my ruler here. If you had a quilting ruler that was see-through, that would actually work even better. What I'm wanting to do is to just put little tick marks along all of my score lines. Okay. And again, I've gone 2 inches from the edge using a metal ruler, or you can use a quilting ruler. I just couldn't find my quilting ruler today. And I'm just making little tick marks. I think you can see those right along the score lines. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Just using my grid paper kind of as a ruler tool. And 2 inches in from the side. And again, I'm just looking at these little tick marks on the grid paper. Kind of line up a straight line there. All right, and then again, making little tick marks at each of the score lines. Each of the score lines, and then the outside edge, which is this one up here. Okay. I know those are hard to see. All right, now what I'm going to do, and let me see if I can get this lit up for you. I'm going to use the 3rd largest circle from the Layering Circles framelits, and I'm going to do a curved line. So I'm basically taking the circle framelits, and I'm trying to line it up at that 1 inch tick mark that we did, and then this you'll notice that there are 1-inch sections. Now let me bring in the template because this will be easier for you to picture. All right, so I'm using the 3rd largest layering circles framelit and making these curved lines. Hope that makes sense, all right? So you want to have something like a Stampin' Pierce mat, and I'm just going to go ahead and do this. I know that this will be a little bit difficult to see. So I'm just using that framelit as kind of like a template, and I'm just running my scoring tool, and I like to kind of go all in the same direction. Let me show you just real quickly what that looks like. See those curves? All right, so I'm going to go down and do it the other direction. And we're going to do that to both the top and the bottom of this paper. All right, so we've done the one side. I'm going to flip it over. And repeat the same thing. Again, we're connecting these middle score lines with those little tick marks that we made. All right, I'm going to do the other side. All right, so I can put that layering circle framelit away. So we've done all of those score lines. I think that's a good impression of it. Here's what it looks like. So we're going to be cutting away quite a few pieces. I'll show you a couple tricks to doing that, but we want to be left with these little 1-inch tab looking things. And that's part of why we did all those silly score lines at the strange marks, only down to that 1-inch score line, okay? So I'm actually going to do this before I, let me think. You know what I'm going to do first? I'm going to go ahead and adhere our cardstock. I've got 4 pieces. This comes from the Quilted Christmas DSP, or Designer Series paper, and they measure 2 3/8 by 1 3/4, and I'm just going to use some liquid glue and adhere that now. And you'll be able to see where they'll fit. They're going to fit right in between those curved score lines. You'll have about a 1/16 of an inch on the right and the left, and about an 1/8 of an inch between the paper and the curved part. And I would just be careful to adhere these so that they're all lined up all the way down. I'm going to fold and burnish on the score lines. Okay, so we are going, let me pull back the template. We're going to cut away these corners on the outside and then these sections. Basically, it's the section inside of where those curved lines meet. I hope that makes sense. So I'm just going to start cutting away. And I'm just going to, while I'm here, just going to cut up each of these score lines that we did not burnish. So they're the little short ones that just go to that horizontal line. I'm just going to go ahead and cut up each of those. I'm ignoring the score lines that we burnished, because those are actually just going to get cut away completely. All right, so cut away that corner. Now what I find is easiest, well, let me go ahead and cut. I'm going to cut away this section as well. Now this is going to be our tab that we're going to adhere the ornament together, so I'm just going to go ahead and notch that just slightly. Okay. Now the trick, or what I found to be the easiest, is I just fold those little 1-inch tabs that we want to keep. I fold them away, and then I cut away this section that's above the curved score lines. Okay. Then again, fold what I want to keep, and then cut away fold away. All right, so then what we're left with are these 4 silly looking 1-inch square tabs. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. There's the template one more time. And then the next thing I'm going to decide, so I typically always have this little tab to the right, and so I always consider this the bottom. I'm going to leave those untouched, but the top squares, I took a 1-inch square piece of cardstock and I just scored it in the middle at 1/2 inch crisscross just to find the center and punched a hole right where that center is. So I'm going to go ahead and just, using my 1/8 inch circle punch, just going to lay that little template over my 1-inch tab. This is not 100% necessary. I just found it's easier to make sure that that hole is centered. And punch. And we'll just do that all the way down. So we've got our holes along those top tabs. Now we're going to start, first thing I'm going to do is just gently bend on those curved lines. And those are all going to fold inside. All right, so now we're going to get some adhesive going. I'm going to use tear and tape. I'm just going to run that right along the edge here. Now this edge is only 1/4 inch, so the tear and tape is going to be a little bit wider than that. It's kind of between 1/4 and 3/8 of an inch. And I'll just show you a trick with that, because there's going to be quite a few tabs that are going to be the 1/4 inch. So you'll see there's that little overhang, and I'm just folding it back on itself. You could take a pair of scissors and trim it off before you peel the backing off, but that works just as well. And then I'm just, since this is an equal number of sides, I'm just going to fold on that second score line and then fold on that first score line. And that should line up right where we want it. There we go. Okay, so it looks like a box right now. Now I'm going to start adhering the side that does not have the holes punched, okay? So these are really going to kind of tuck in those little curved marks. I want to pay attention to where my seam is, and this one's going to be my back panel. So we're going to do the sides first. Now grab your liquid glue, and you can be pretty generous with this. Not too crazy generous because you don't want glue oozing everywhere, but I do want to kind of cover that whole tab. And what I found is we want to basically overlap these tabs. And I just kind of get my fingers in there from either side and kind of slide it into place. They're both the exact same size, so you just want them to overlap. Hope that makes sense. It doesn't take too long for that glue to adhere. Just be real gentle here that you're not pulling apart the cardstock too much, because I don't want you to rip it. We've done a lot of work so far, so we don't want to ruin it. Okay. And then we're going to go do the back is the next one. All right, and I'm going to do glue on the back side. And overlap that. Again, holding that into place. I kind of got my finger up underneath. All right, and then the final one, and this one will be the hardest to hold into place, but it should go in pretty easily. I'm just going to kind of press that into place here. And this one I want you to take your time with so that it doesn't move. I'm just going to hold it there. All right, so another thing you can do is from the inside, just use your little glue bottle as a tool, and then you can press down from the inside. All right, so now we're going to do the top part. Now we're going to do 3 of the 4 tabs. Here's a note here. If you wanted this to be like a treat holder ornament, now would be the time to put your treat in here. And you can actually not adhere these tops, or you can adhere like 3 of them, but not the 4th if you're using a small size treat. But because the ribbon will actually hold it all together. So that would be one way for you to have this be kind of a reusable treat holder. I'm going to go ahead and just use this as an ornament and adhere all these tabs together. So again, I'm paying attention to where my back is. We're going to do the 2 sides. And the only thing different about this is you just try not to get glue in the hole. And again, I'm going to fold that in and then come at it from the side to hold it into place. And you'll see those holes should line up pretty well if you used a template like that I created. Now I've got a little too much glue here. All right, we're gonna do the back one next. Press that into place. Again, be as gentle as you can with the cardstock. All right, so that's what I was saying. If you had like a really small treat that would fit in this hole here, and you could just leave this flap unglued. But let me show you. So let's go ahead and feed the ribbon through. I'm going to take about a 12-inch piece of ribbon. Let's see, 12 to 14 inches will be fine, depending on the thickness. If it was thicker, I'd probably go closer to 14. Oh, and this is the, I always forget the name, Quilted Christmas Ribbon. It's beautiful with the real red and garden green stripes. I think, 1/4 inch ribbon. Now we're just going to go ahead and tie a knot. Then very gently, I'm going to try to feed that up, at least the corner of it, into that hole. And I'm just going to grab my little paper piercing tool, try to pick that up a little bit. It'll pull through pretty easily. There we go. All right, so pull that through. Now we can go ahead and either just leave this open and feed the ribbon through the hole and be done with it, or if you want this to be a permanent ornament, I'm going to go ahead and actually, let me go ahead and feed the ribbon through first, then I'll put the glue on. And I can actually put glue on this piece here. It's easier to navigate. Of course, I got glue everywhere. All right, so now I'm just gonna pull this into place gently and then press it into that glue. This is the part that's probably the hardest to make sure that you don't bend your ornament. There we go. Now, if you wanted to, you could kind of take your paper piercing tool and put that up in there just to kind of have some pressure to adhere that down. I'm just gently pressing to get a good hold there. Oh, I love these ornaments. Again, Samantha Clayton from mixedupcraft.com. And I'm going to twist this ribbon. So this will be the front of our ornament. All right, so to try to save some time, I went ahead and did my stamping and die cutting. So I used, I think it's the second smallest scalloped oval and smooth oval from the Layering Ovals framelits. I cut this out of real red, and then I stamped the sentiment from Hearts Come Home, one of my favorite Christmas sets in the holiday catalog. And the sentiment Merry and Bright, I stamped that in garden green and just glued those together with liquid glue and stuck some dimensionals on the back. If those dimensionals look funny to you, it's because they're from the edge of the dimensional sheet. I don't let any go to waste. And we'll just stick that right on the front there. All right, there we go. So the ornament is done. I love it. All right, so this is the shadow box we're gonna make. Because this shadow box has tall sides, we're actually gonna have to put this together with 4 separate pieces. Typically, my shadow boxes are done with 1 piece of cardstock. We're gonna do 4 separate pieces, and I wanna make sure that I give you all the right dimensions. 1 piece, this is all garden green, and this measures 3 3/4 by 4 1/4. That's gonna be the bottom of our shadow box, okay? Then we're gonna need 2 pieces that measure 6 1/2 by 5 1/4. So 2 of those. And then 2 pieces that measure 6 1/2 by 3 3/4. Okay? So we're not scoring the smallest piece. That's just for the base. I'm gonna start with, let me pull out my Simply Scored. We're gonna start with the larger of the 2 pieces. Along the 6 1/2 inch side, we're gonna do 1/4 inch, but let me show you a trick because the 1/4 inch is a little difficult to do on the left side. So it's going to be 1/4 inch, then 3 inches, 3 1/2, and 6 1/4. Okay, so the trick to get that first 1/4 is just rotate your cardstock 180 degrees and do the 6 1/4 there. Okay, so you're gonna have these 2 1/4 inch score lines on the edges and then this center 1/2 inch score line. Then I'm gonna rotate it to the 5 1/4 side and we're gonna score that at 1/2 inch and 4 3/4. So we're gonna have 2 1/2 inch sides here. Okay, so let me do that real quick on the other one. All right, so those are scored. Now with the small ones, again, this measures 6 1/2. So we're gonna do the same measurement. So it's the 1/4 inch, 3, 3 1/2, 6 1/4. And then again, rotate it and do that 6 1/4 again. We'll just do this one while we're here. 3, 3 1/2, 6 1/4, rotate, 6 1/4. Okay, now this one, the trick is on the 3 3/4 side, we're gonna score it at 1/2 inch and 3 1/4, but only down to the second score line. So 1/2 inch and 3 1/4 down to that second vertical score line. And this is what makes it have that nice framed shadow box. Okay, 1/2 inch, 3 1/4. Okay, let's go ahead and put these away. Now I'm gonna do some cutting before I fold and burnish. So what we're gonna do on this larger piece is anywhere where we have these 1/4 inch, those are actually gonna be the tabs that adhere to create the shadow box. Okay, so I'm actually gonna create this tab here and I'm actually gonna do a big notch out and I'll show you why. And then notch this just slightly. And we're gonna cut away this whole section. Now, as I do this, I'm cutting just to the right of the score line, basically cutting that score line out. That's gonna help the shadow box go together. Okay, do the same thing on the other side again. This I'm gonna notch quite a bit, kind of a 45-degree angle there. So that's what that looks like. We got these 2 tabs here, but we cut away all those sections. I'm gonna repeat that on this one. Again, doing that 45-degree angle here. Got these 2 tabs on the side, and you'll see why we have those. Then I did that notch of 45-degree angles on the tab closest to these 2 side tabs. Okay, I'm also gonna notch these ones as well, come to think of it. Okay, those 2 pieces are done. Now this one, to the side where we have those 2 little 1/2 inch score lines, we're gonna go ahead and cut up those score lines. Again, I'm cutting out the score lines. And where that score line stops, I'm gonna do that little angle cut that these shadow boxes are known for. And I'm gonna angle, well, it's actually easier to come at it from this way. This score line. So we get that nice little frame. You'll see it as we put it together. Same thing on the opposite side. I've been wanting to show you guys this project for weeks. I demonstrated at World Card Making Day and I just haven't had a chance to get my act together because this is quite a complicated project, but I wanted to make sure that I could do it justice. All right, so then the last thing I'll do is just do those 45-degree angle notches on both tabs. That's just to try to prevent some overlap as this goes together. You'll see why. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing here, cutting up those 1/2 inch score lines. All right, tear and tape on all those little 1/4 inch tabs. So here's the 2 small pieces again, just tear and tape along the 1/4 inch tabs, and then teeny tiny pieces right along those diagonal sides, okay? And then on the larger pieces, we got tear and tape on the 2 1/4 tabs and the 2 1/2 inch tabs, all right? Now, I am gonna just trim off. You don't have to do this, but I'm just trimming off the excess here. You could just fold over the excess. Now I'm going to just go ahead and fold and burnish on all those score lines. I'm grabbing my base, and we're going to go ahead and start to assemble things here. All right, so we're going to do the long sides first. I'm going to go ahead and peel away the tear and tape from the tab closest to those 1/2 inch tabs. And we basically just want, oops, I forgot to fold over that excess tear and tape there. And I'm basically just going to line this up right along that score line. It's easier for me to kind of take the base to the larger scored piece. All right, so that's one side. Again, here's our base. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Actually, we're going to do it on all 4 sides, but I'm doing the larger pieces first. Okay, and again, all right, so again, this is our base, and we've adhered the 2 side tabs. Next, we're going to go ahead and adhere these tabs, and again, it's the wider side. That tab is what we're going to adhere to the base. And I'll show you when I flip this over why we did those 45-degree angle cuts. All right, I'll do the same thing again, the tab. I'm forgetting to fold back the tear and tape here. And just lining it up along the score line there. All right, so now when I flip it over, you'll see those 45-degree angle notches that we did, that just allowed that paper, or prevented that paper from overlapping. It's just gonna allow this to lay flat. Okay, so similar to how I do my other shadow boxes, I'm going to go ahead and peel away the backing. I'm going to fold on the 3rd score line and press that into place. Whoops, please work, please work. Okay, there we go. That's going to line it up right where we want it. Again, peeling the backing. And the reason why these are 1/4 inch is that it's actually going to line up right here. This is a 1/4 inch, this is a 1/4 inch. So they're going to line up and butt up right against each other. There is a method to that madness. And again, folding on the 3rd score line and folding into place. You could also kind of just press it into place underneath here if you needed to. I know that's going to be hard to see on the camera. Okay, so then I'm going to do the same thing. So folding on the 3rd score line and folding this into place. It's just easier to do this than to try to get it while you're putting the box together. All right, folding on the third score line, folding that, oops, under. That's good. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and remove the tear and tape, the rest of the tear and tape. So from those 4 tabs, we want to try to grab the backing from those diagonal pieces. All right, so what I'm going to do is just, as we put this together, I want to make sure that this side with the tabs also goes up underneath that diagonal. It should work. Should be able to do both of those kind of at the same time. I'm hoping anyways. Whoops. Okay. So what I did was I lined up that edge first and just made sure that this was up and underneath. Press that into place. So we've got that tear and tape under there. Hope this is making sense. Again, let's go ahead and, as we line up that edge, make sure that this piece is underneath that diagonal piece. Okay, press the edge into place. All right, do the same thing over here. Oops, something's sticking. There we go. So lining up that edge. And then the final side. Now, last thing, I just want to make sure that these corners are squared up and pressed into place. Hallelujah, look at that. All right, so there's the shadow box. Let's go ahead and put our ornament in there. It should be a perfect fit. Now the final touch is I cut a window sheet to kind of protect that ornament. It just makes it look a little bit more professional. All right, so we're gonna cut this to 3 1/4 by 8 1/8. Let's do the 8 1/8 first. Got my little arm out. 8 1/8. Okay, and then 3 1/4. All right, now we're gonna score it at 2 11/16, which is 1 tick mark before 2 3/4. And we're gonna score, and I'm gonna kind of go back and forth a few times because this is acetate. Okay, there's that score line. Then I'm gonna do the same thing, 2 11/16. So 1 tick mark before 2 3/4. And the reason for the 1/16 inch measurement is so that we can make sure that the acetate sits in the box. Go ahead and put this away. And I'm going to fold and burnish. Burnish is key on those score lines that we made. Okay, do the same thing on the other side. And of course, if you're like me, you get fingerprints all over everything. So if you need to wipe them off, go ahead and do that. All right, so now we have this little sleeve looking thing, and that should fit right over our ornament and sit right inside the box. How awesome is that? So there we go. There's our shadow box ornament. I love it. It's just a really nice handmade gift that you know is going to last for years to come. So thank you all so much for joining me tonight. If you have any questions, Feel free to leave them in the comments. I will address them. I read and appreciate each and every single one of them, so thank you so much. I'd love for you to sign up for my newsletter or my blog updates, or both. You can do that on my blog as well. I also do have a host code on the right side of my blog, so if you place any orders with me, if you'll attach that host code, only if your order is less than $150, because otherwise I want you to get the Stampin' Rewards yourself. But I do have a free gift that I'm giving to everyone that places an order of $75 or more this month. Thanks again for watching. I hope you have a wonderful and blessed day. Take care. Bye.